Welcome to the Master Your Millions podcast, the show all about your financial potential and leaving a legacy for future generations. Here are your hosts, Jason and Scott Henderson.
Scott Henderson, and my co-host is Dr. J. We have a couple of very special guests today. Jason, who do we have coming on?
Thanks, Scott, and welcome everybody. Yes, today we have Ken Ashby and Mary Segal. They are the authors of what's the RFactor. It's discovering the universal rhythms for leading prosperous relationships. Now, they're sometimes referred to as America's master connectors. They're business partners and husband and wife, and they have both together and individually. They've worked in over 40 countries and served a wide spectrum of local and global leaders, brands, and policymakers. From boardrooms to classrooms, from Harvard Kennedy School to the White House, from America's 400th anniversary to the Super Bowl halftimes. They've both had TEDx speakers in the past and authors, and they're here as guests with us to talk specifically about relationships and how that fits in with the idea of building wealth, enjoying wealth, and passing it on. Thanks, Maris and Ken, for joining our podcast today.
Thanks, Dr. J and Scott, for having us. We're so happy to be here.
And I'm actually a little honored being the only woman among three amazing powerhouse, heart-centered men. So I kind of like that.
Well, you might have Scott has a new baby, and so there's a baby girl there probably in the background that he might turn his screen off in a minute. He's not like he doesn't like what you're saying. Sometimes he needs to be a dad in the middle of this. So we'll see. Hopefully we won't do that, but we'll see what happens.
All good. That's
so you're one of two, Maris, and part of me is as bragging as the grandpa. So
I love that. Brag away, my friend.
So tell us a little bit, just give us a brief overview of a little bit of your journey from where you've been coming to this realization of how important relationships are.
I'll kick it off. Well, we worked for many, many years in this relationship area, building relationships for our clients with their customers, with their teams, and really began to realize how central this relationship aspect is in all areas of our lives and our work, both work and professional.
And so, it's interesting. Ken and I have been together for 20 years and choosing each other in love, life, business, all the way across the board. So you can imagine when you live, love, work, and play together, it's really about navigating what works. And for years, people would constantly, still to this day, the first question people ask us when they realize we're working together is, how does that work? And not only that, but how does that work? And how do you still have this love romance thing going on, and you work together and you still have a personal life? So really, I was afraid to analyze it. And for years, we'd known that there was just this flow and this rhythm and that it worked. And what we started to recognize is that there were four key kind of values and rhythms that we were living into every day. And we questioned whether or not those were actually the same rhythms that accomplished the Dalai Lama, the Pope, a mother in her school, a famous celebrity author, a famous skier. And we started to really poll the hundreds of celebrities and heads of state and all the folks that we were working with in relationship space on the event side as producers, creating connected relationships, and on the coaching business side of relationships. And when we realized that there were these four key factors that in fact do work for everybody, we thought, there might be more to this. And those four factors are respect, responsibility, reframing, and resilience. And within each of those, we kind of realized, okay, there's more to this. And that really set us into this space of really tuning in and saying, okay, then what are people's relationship with money, with themselves, with their teams, with their family? How is that working? And so that's really how this whole space really opened up for us, from a solid place of business relationship marketing to it actually works across the boards, 360 degrees in all of our lives. And that's what really brought us to where we are.
Jason, you're muted.
Yeah, I'm
Thank you.
muted. Sorry. Fabulous. Let's go into those four a little bit and sort of elaborate on them. I have to say too, I should have said it up front that Ken is a musician and he's a very good voice. Sings very well, and more than once have I seen him teach a concept that you guys teach, singing it, which is way cool. That's kind of unusual. But let's come back to those four factors. Let's explore them a little bit more. And you know, I like the idea that what you said in relationship to money, but let's talk about it a little bit more.
Yeah, well, I would also say that because I'm a singer-songwriter and have been around this for many years, and Maris loves music and loves this. We have those similar affinity for different styles of music, but this is part of the rhythm aspect of relationships. The rhythm, these four rhythms of relationships, because so much of our lives is built around this idea of rhythm. I mean, we all are walking drum machines. We have a beat that's constantly going on inside us all the time, and that rhythm can be exaggerated. It can be slowed down, and sometimes we wake up in the morning, we're feeling really very driving and kind of like a rock and roll, and sometimes mellow and move. So these rhythms, like the circadian rhythms, affect everything. So that's where we came up with this concept of these relationship rhythms. So again, Maris, I'll just quickly say them again. Respect is one of the rhythms. You can't have a relationship with anything if you have no respect for it. And then secondly, responsibility in a relationship. It's not just the other party, the other person, the other things. It's not just their responsibility. It's a shared responsibility. Reframing is the third one, and that's explores the idea of we have so many thoughts that have been living with us for all our lives, and many times it's negative. And those negative thoughts keep coming back up and governing how we live our lives. Reframing is all about how can we see that from a different point of view, a different perspective. And then, of course, in relationships and life, resilience is key because there's going to be ups and downs, there's going to be roller coaster, and you just have to be resilient. You get to be resilient and stand up strong. So that's sort of just a little bit deeper overview.
Okay, and so let's talk a little bit of how these rhythms can affect or impact you when you make a financial decision. Whether that's to buy a house, start a business, invest in gas and oil, buy a 24-plex, something. Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, I tell you, I'll just kick off here. I used to be I was for many years in a former life a stockbroker. So licensed Series 7, Series 6, Series, all the insurance products. So I had great experience working with people in making investments. And so this idea of certainly all of these elements come in to play when you're making an investment. Do you have respect for this thing that you're investing in, this piece that you hope is going to build your fortune?
Yeah, and I think, look, let's look at money overall, and then let's look at those investments. When it comes down to respect, and we look at that first, the bottom line is respect ourselves first. I mean, now I know, Jason, I know you have a number of children and you have grandchildren now, and I'm sure that you guys have talked about respect. And in my house growing up, as close as we were, traditional Jewish family, we always heard about respecting others, right? Respect out. I actually never heard respect myself first. And that actually impacted a lot of things in my life. Not that it was intentional, but when we think about respect and we respect ourselves first, then our respect around money comes from a very different place. It comes from this place of possibility and abundance, right? Also looking at that, then we come into a place of if we can respect ourselves in it and respect the possibilities of money, because money at the core is not a thing, it's energy. Right? It gets shifted, it gets moved around. It's not this thing that we get to toss. It's also something when we think about money and the energy of it that we get to court instead of chase, right? And that is both from a place of respect and really being present, as well as stepping into responsibility. Because when we step into a place of responsibility, now whether or not we're seeking business, right? So we're in relationship with money and with people, that means there's an exchange. So in the space of responsibility, we're looking at our investments across the board and we're saying, okay, what makes the most sense for me, short-term, long-term? What's a vision? How do I align with that vision? What's my responsibility in the short term to myself, to my long term, to my family, to my business team, to all of that? It's all those pieces, right? So that's the responsibility piece. So first we have people meeting people where they are, respect, understanding the need of the client, of the cause, and the possibility of what that money can do for us. And then the responsibility of stepping in from a place of gather the proper information. Don't make decisions on the fly and be in reaction. There's always going to be another opportunity. I guarantee you, when someone says it's the last opportunity, it never is. Hear my words. When somebody says it's the last opportunity, there's always another offer. There's always
Sorry.
another something, right?
Yeah. Working in producing events and creating projects around the world. We had a project many years ago where we were looking for outside investors. We had a huge company that was sponsoring it. We were doing it all over the U.S. It was a major project. And so we went to some outside investors, and we had an investor that put $2 million into it, invested $2 million. And because he had respect for what we were doing, had respect for the partner client that we had, which was Giant, coming to the table, and also it was great. And then this was an outdoor project. Then the weather shifted, and we faced, in every city we went to, the highest degree of temperature that had ever been recorded in those cities. And they were telling people, stay home, do not go outside. And here we are with a 20-acre venue and live music and all sorts of things, and nobody barely came because the weather was so. So we went back to the investor. Yeah, it was a little bit of a bust. I'm so sorry that this one didn't work out. Well, that's okay. Come to me if you have another idea, come see me. And sorry that there was that much money. That's okay. We not only respected where we had, but we also took responsibility and invested in put a hedge on some crops, that if you had a hot sun, the crops are going to do well. So they were sort of hedged on the side. So that's the combination of respect and responsibility, specifically in an investment situation, personally, that I experienced.
Yeah, for sure.
I thought really, when it comes down to in business, and whether it's investing or owning a business or whatever, often everybody wants to talk about essentially one thing, and that's the bottom line. What's in it for me? What's my profit? What's the take home? Yada, yada, yada. Well, what would you say is, in relationships, is there a bottom line in relationships? Whether that's marital, whether that's corporate relationships. I mean, because when we talk on this podcast about teams, that relationship can be a husband-wife team. It can be, a business owner accountant, a business owner marketer, or something. But there's a relationship. Tell us a little bit about why, what's the bottom line of relationships, particularly in a business setting.
Well, it's one of those big questions, right? So you look at that and say, so relationships, and here's the bottom line. We're in relationship with someone or something from the time we wake up in the morning to the time our head hits the pillow at night. And then, oh, by the way, overnight, we're in relationship with ourselves, right? So it is an ongoing. And what we talk about in our work and what we actually seek in the clients we serve on the corporate level and, peak performing entrepreneurial businesses and not-for-profits is we focus on, we are all connected as humans first, and that's where the bottom line begins. So while the dollars are important, if we aren't first honoring the humans that are connecting to create those opportunities, to see those opportunities through, then our investments will never, ever succeed nor rise, ever. So the first part for us is, it's the human piece of this. That's the capital, the human capital side of this, and of business and in family. Because without the human team, I mean, we're all living in an AI world right now. We get it. It's not so new. We've all been living in an AI world. I don't know where people think they've been getting all their bank statement information and all that. I mean, we've been living in an AI world. Now all of a sudden people are kind of flipping out about it. And we're looking at each other going, yeah, you know what? The notion of the soft skills that people talk about, right? Soft skills are about relations. Yeah, we are very much focused on the human relational leadership pieces of business and personal lives, because what it comes down to is being clear in your communication about expectations, right? And I know Scott and Jason, you guys think about each other and how you work together. Think about how you're working in your family. Think about how you're working with teams. In the end, when we're clear in our communication and expectations are aligned, great example, we worked with someone, very high-end celebrity a number of years ago, and we put the whole deal in place. We're putting the deal in place. It was a big deal. Everybody was thrilled about it. And it was a very tough deal to put together. So I will just say that. And that being said, in the end, we were really proud of it and it was great. And 3 months into the agreement, some things had shifted for the talent we were doing the negotiation with, we had done the deal with, and they said, well, the agreement says this, 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 and this. Actually, I hear that you think that that's what the agreement says in the words, but look below it is the actual interpretation of that language. In his mind, the expectations all of a sudden were no longer in agreement. So what we talk about is expectations without agreement create premeditated resentment, right? So I know it might seem really simple, Jason, but the fact is what builds a solid relationship with money, with teams, with family is first our responsibility in being present, in being respectful, in really listening, and in really communicating and hearing the other side so that there really is a collaboration to be able to collectively feel that pride moving forward.
One of the first places that I think expectations comes into play, and this idea of expectations, when you read a red herring, that's what they're called, right? The prospectus. Yeah, red herrings. It's been a while. Really, one of the most important pieces of that is this is a good investment. You're going to love it. We're glad you like it. However, you could lose all your money. So that's an expectation that you have to be in agreement with if you're going to step into it. You have to really take that and weigh it. Okay, are you willing to lose this? Are you able to lose this? And then that's a measure of what your risk level is and all of that. But I think that's an expectation that's put right up front in a prospectus for an investment. Yes, this is a great investment. And yes, you could lose all your money. Does that make sense?
It does. Is there,
Let me chime in here real quick. So going along with this concept of setting clear and reasonable expectations, is there a checklist that you guys use, whether it's with you personally or with someone in your team or with money or whatever the relationship is, to make sure that you're being clear and following this process?
I think that's the first step is, are you clear? Do you understand me? Am I making myself clear? I mean, you have to have a conversation. There has to be some interchange. And so once that's clear, yes, I understand. Okay, do we agree with that? Or do you agree? Do I agree? And then you modify it if you need to change something or create it so it is that clear communication is the start of agreement on expectations. Scott, you're absolutely right.
And I think from a checklist perspective, yeah, I mean, generally, the reality is that we use the 4 key rhythms in all and everything because that's where the checklists come in. Am I being responsible to what the investment is? Have I clearly communicated what the opportunity is, what the challenges are, right? So it's all those pieces. Have I clearly offered an equal opportunity for everybody in the room to feel like their voice has been heard. Again, this could be a budget, this could be investment, this could be a conversation in family about allowances. It's all the same. Have I really ensured that I've heard everybody, right? And then looking at it from another perspective and saying, okay, if that's the case, then where is my accountability in this situation? And where is your accountability in this situation? So we align on what those accountability points are. The other point is, how do we measure success? Being really clear together about how we're measuring success. And when we measure success, we always say, every moment, every movement, every money win, every win in our lives gets to be celebrated with a gratitude. Absolutely with a gratitude. Because we're all such high achievers. I don't know about you guys, but we're constantly looking at where's there, right? How do we get there? And the only way to get there is to take the wheels and the tee off and start here. And if we don't start here from a place, as Scott says in that checklist of, wow, this was an accomplishment, and we get to recognize that at every turn, that's a huge part of that responsibility also, because if we're not continuing along the way to build value and connection in all of this, then no matter how much money we have, how much money we earn, how much money we grow, it'll never be enough, because we're still going to be in that mindset of reaching versus being present in where we are. Does that answer that question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, and I would just add that the checklist basically are the 4 R's, the 4 relationship rhythms. Really respect. Do you respect what's being put forward here? Are you taking responsibility? Are you holding your own responsibility? Are you ready to reframe something? Because there's going to be challenges and you get to recreate, reframe it somehow. And are we ready to stick to it with resilience? So that's really the checklist in terms of expectations and moving forward with something.
I was just thinking about something, Jason. I think it's important to spend a couple minutes on resilience in all of this, because I don't know about you guys, but we've certainly lost money in business. Of course, then there's COVID, and certainly have lost, investments, have made them too, and that's great. But the resilience piece is an interesting one, because I don't know about you guys, but I have always stood as an independent person, as a lioness, as a strong lioness, 3 girls and a family of, a big, tough military dad. And it was the constant I've figured out, just figured out. So I came from a world of not really learning how to ask or seek support well, or receive it well. And that's really difficult when you're in a space of resilience. When you're going through something, this is in your personal life, in your business life, with your investments, whatever it is, stand in a space, not in a lone wolf space. Stand in a space and be in a space of seeking and receiving support for people who can help guide through, whether or not it's a mentor, a coach, a family member, whatever that looks like. And as we coach teams and we work on these issues, these are all the pieces that really build success and accomplished individuals and businesses. And that resilience one is interesting. It's a really, change is inevitable. The growth is going to be good for us, and it's still painful along the way. And that's okay. Because you know what? Sometimes our mess can really be our greatest glory. So.
That's true. I have a question here I've been thinking about that. And I think I even know the answer. However, I'm going to go ahead and ask it. Is sometimes in business, sometimes in whatever it is, in relationships, there's indications that it's an unhealthy relationship, and the relationship needs to be altered, or potentially that person needs to go away. And what I'm talking about, so maybe I have an accountant, maybe I have a marketing person, maybe I have something who I've considered to be part of my team and my business, right? There's a big portion of our audience that are entrepreneurs. And so they're reaching out and sort of finding some of the secrets, if you will, from our podcast of how to avoid some of the pitfalls. And one of them is having the wrong person on the bus. Is it going through the 4 R's with an individual? Are they responsible? Are they respectful? Is that how you determine whether that relationship is the right kind of relationship? Or What would you say?
I think probably just preceding that, going before that, when we all come up, when we are exploring a relationship, a new relationship, there's a connection factor that is crucial. If you meet someone and you speak with someone and you don't feel a connection, then maybe that's not the right relationship or the right person or expertise for you. There's someone else you should keep looking. So I think you get to pay attention to what your gut is. Is there an initial connection? Do you find a connection? And the only way to do that is really being present in the moment, being present in the relationship, and listening to, seeing their body language, listening to how they're presenting it. All those aspects go into finding out if there's a connection. Now, let's say we have a great connection. Someone we meet, someone we want to work with, I have a great connection. You don't have any idea, other than looking at references, how that connection will play out. Will it be just something for a short period of time or a long period of time? There is no way to tell. We just jump on, we lock arms, we connect with each other, and we move forward. And we get to the point where it's not working, and where we have to be clear about it. One of the tools we use is what's working, what's not working, and what's in the gap. So if you have an employee or you have a relationship, say, okay, what's working with this, and celebrate it. Hey, this is good. Okay, what's not working? It's not a judgment. It's just an observation. What's working, what's not working. And then you look to see if you can close the gap between those two. And if you can't close the gap and it doesn't move forward, then yeah, there's a chance that you get to be respectful and say goodbye.
And
Does that make sense?
I'll add to this. I'll add to this as well. You know what Ken said. I think that, Jason, you asked a very specific question also of, okay, it's just not working. What do we do next? And how do we walk through that? The bottom line to this is, yeah, I mean, we definitely use the 4 rhythms, but we've recently been in this conversation, in fact, with a team, and there were a couple of people on that team, and it's definitely not working. And one was part of the senior leadership. You know, what it comes down to first is, what were the expectations and where are we out of alignment?
Were they clear?
When we look at the relationship rhythm circle, we say, every one of those gets to be in alignment all the time, or something is out of sync. If you're not in a respectful place, if you're not, in responsibility space, if you're not, reframing also sometimes means that person could be sitting across from you, Jason, and they could say to you, look, this is what I came in, this is what I was told I was doing, this is my perspective on it, and I'm doing my job. And you're sitting on the other side of the table thinking, wow, were we in the same room? Right? So there's a reframing perspective there, because you want to meet someone where they are to go, okay, let's be curious. And we coach on, instead of judgment, come from a place of curiosity and discovery.
I love that.
Because we really want to be in judgment. We just really want to be in judgment and just get out.
Be right.
Right. And be right about it. But being right about it's not going to help anyone. So when you look at that space of responsibility and reframing, it's coming at it and saying, okay, let me see and really understand from a place of mutuality, unless there's been that communication piece is the name of the game. And so, yes, so addressing, and from their perspective also, typically, if you're calling someone into a space and something's not working, both of you are aware it's not working. You'd have to be really poor business people to not be aware. And even in a relationship, a personal relationship, that gut says, ooh, something's off. So it's also being an acknowledgement of that, right one. And to be able to come at it from that space and really talk about it from a place of clarity, so that they leave still feeling good about the work they've done, and you feel good about the work that you've invested in, and you part ways.
So I want to ask then a further question is
And I
that
think the beginning of that is expectation.
We're hearing you.
Sorry,
We're hearing you.
Jason?
There's a little bit of cutout for me for
Oh, okay.
Ken and Maris. I don't know if that's happening with Scott or not, but like anyway, this cut out. I wanted to a follow up because you talked, Maris, a little bit about resilience. And is resilience in what you're thinking that in this same scenario, whether it's the right person or not for us, is the resilience the willingness to, you know, I wouldn't say get a black eye, but get a bruise, you know, and say, oh yeah, I was wrong there, or I did this, but yet I'm still committed to making this work. It seems like to me that when you have someone that are willing to do that resilience part, that I want to say that that's the most important one out of all of them. I almost feel that way. I get the respect, right?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, it's interesting. Okay, let's play with that for a minute. So resilience is actually a choice. So let's sit with that for a minute. We can choose to take the black eye, sit back and go, oh, woe is me, what a mess, ridiculous, sit in that and see about how long that works for you, right? We can also do it from a perspective of not seeing any other angle. So I think resilience, I hear your perspective on that. I would say that resilience is how we choose to respond and rise above it to next, to break it through. Think about it that way, right? And the only way, though, to have resilience is to be clear from a responsibility and respect perspective and reframing about what was working, what was not working, what's in the gap. If you don't have those and you aren't hearing each other and being present, and mind you, these are conversations we have had with CEOs of companies, and it's kind of wild because when they realize, oh my gosh, I thought we were being clear and we weren't, or yeah, you know what, things shifted. And this is the other thing that's really important on this path when we're dealing with resilience, and that is always come back and reassess. This is a big mistake that entrepreneurs and corporations make on a consistent basis. Just because a year ago you set out on a goal and a vision and it was all great and it was working great for a quarter, doesn't mean that 6 months, 8 months later, a la COVID, a la, you know, the market, a la everything else people are going through, doesn't mean that it's still working in the same way. So the constant responsibility to reassess how we're doing. How are we doing as a team? How are we doing against our measurables? Is everybody clear? Also comes from that same place of respect.
Well, that you just introduced another R, right? Scott, can you hear me? I lost him. Oh boy. Don't know what to say. So, editing people, we're going to pause here. They dropped off. They're going to come back on and we'll start all over. Or at least we'll pick up where we left off.
We're not sure what happened there. We just got booted out.
Yeah, you were kind of hiccuping a little bit.
Okay.
So we'll attempt to splice this together, because what I started to say, we'll kind of cut it where it was, and there was a break there. As I said, so you kind of introduced a fifth R in this reassessment, right? And it's very fascinating how these R's, and the relationship, because and most of the time we're kind of thinking interpersonal relationship, but our relationship with money and our relationship to freedom, financial freedom, right, is really similar. And you kind of alluded to that earlier with you have to respect the money, et cetera. But I want to ask you this specific question. Where is the starting point, the initial investment, if you will, that can increase the rate of return, or the ROI in terms of relationships?
I would just go to that certain spot that I was saying before, that the initial investment is connection, is being present to someone or something that you are interested in. So you get to be so present to it that you hear and listen to what's being said, what's being portrayed, all of that. I think that's the initial investment, is for us as a person, to be present and aware of what we're getting into, who we're speaking with, how we're feeling about it. So that presence and awareness is really that initial investment, and that's going to pay off in the ROI down the road.
And that's also, and adding to that, look, we all come into this world from a long legacy of our past. Our parents passed, their parents passed, their parents before them. So we actually come in a little bit preconditioned, because our beliefs about money, religion, work ethic, relationships, it all has started somewhere else. So we're born into this world with some of this already really imprinted, because as we're coming in, we're in that environment. And if we all recognize that every relationship begins with a desire, and that's not a romantic desire. If you want a car, if you're looking to make money, that's a desire. We get to be one with whatever that desire is, because that desire is then going to drive this connection. So great examples, even how we met. We met in this really incredible community, purpose-driven, heart-centered, folks. We connected with you and your lovely wife, and started to get to know you guys. And there was just this sort of connect. And I think what's really important when we look at investing, because we also say relationships are currency, right? It's currency. And if money is energy, then the currency that is running through is a current and a rhythm that is running through all of our lives on a consistent basis. And in an AI world, that connection and the authentic connection means everything. It's stepping into a relationship from a place of not wanting necessarily something big, but standing in a space of just being in service and authenticity in that relationship and seeing what unfolds, and doing it from a place of curiosity. That goes with a new job. That goes with, I'm looking at an investment in Israel. I'm looking at an investment of real estate. I'm going to be my own banker. All of those points start with a desire and get to be connection respected, and then moving forward. And if we can master those connections and really look at business and family from that perspective, imagine spending a week up-leveling every relationship in your life from that perspective. What's my relationship with money? Do I fear it? Do I chase it? Maybe I get to shift it, and I get to now court it differently. That's a different that's a reframing. So it ultimately comes from that connection, and that connection builds trust. When we keep showing up consistently at home, at work, whatever it is, those connections build trust. And that's ultimately the cornerstone for powerful relationships.
And a relationship that we haven't discussed, and I'd like to point out, is the relationship from buyer to seller, right? Business to customer. However you want to do that. If there's that respect, right? If you go through the 4 R's, right? you can apply that to that relationship, and the better that relationship's between the seller and the buyer, or you and your customer, right? And you up level it, like you said, then that relationship happens again and again, and possibly more. I'm thinking of a friend of mine, a good friend of mine that I went to high school with. He owns a grocery store, and just the relationship that I have noticed a couple of times when I've been in there, that he has with his customers. He knows them. They come in, they can call him by name, and the better he does with that, the better will be his business.
Yeah. So
very interesting. I'm thinking, I love this interview. This has been so awesome because you've opened my mind to a lot of different possibilities in how I see many different things, because I am in relationship with a lot of different things. And Master Your Millions is all about, this podcast is about accumulating, enjoying, and passing on your wealth. Well, passing on your wealth is also part of a legacy, if you will. And it's not the money that you pass. It's not what you leave to someone. It's what you leave in someone that's really your,
it's the heart
legacy,
of it. I
right?
love that. It's the heart of it. Yes.
And that's the real value. That's the real legacy, right?
Yes.
Did you say not what you leave with someone, but what you leave in someone?
Right.
I love that. That's beautiful.
And how they feel, right? Because in the end, what we bring to our, from birth to death, is the breath of life. And every day we have a choice in how we operate in that. And that your friend has chosen, from a business perspective, to have people feel connected. It started for him again with a desire, right? He wanted to be a business person. And the connection was about creating a heart connection and being in service to the community. He chooses every day how he shows up, and that he creates that value feeling in someone. That goes across the board with our corporate clients, our not-for-profit clients, and every relationship that people have in their personal lives. The same thing. And that's why I'm seeing you in that aha space. And that's why we talk about this as the RFactor, because it's what we realized early on is that, wow, we've now anecdotally polled nearly 300 people from all walks of life, from heads of state to heads of household to Olympians. And these are the 4 keys that when they work consistently, and when one of them is off, right? So think about your friend in the store. So he's had a bad day, God forbid, poor thing, just, maybe had a car accident or something, and comes in, and the cat got out, and the dog got out, and the food this morning was all over the floor. And now he gets to be in the office serving all these folks in his store. So he gets to choose. I can leave how I'm feeling, get myself and reframe it out of my mindset. I can shift that and step out into my community and allow that space to feel and have that feeling of service with them. Or I can take everything I've just experienced and be gruff and be rude and be tough and be out on the floor and have that be the experience with my customers. That's a choice.
Wow. And we have talked a little bit about gratitude, and I guess gratitude kind of plays into all of this. We approach it from a kind of a foundation of gratitude, that we can have a relationship, and that I'm grateful I know about these 4 R's. I guess I need to read your book.
Yeah.
Speaking of Wes, your book is available on Amazon?
Yeah, the book's available on Amazon, and I actually think you guys have a signed copy already. I believe we might have done one for you.
I'm pretty sure we do. So everyone, we will put a link to, you can go find it on Amazon, but we'll put a link in the show notes just to simply say, here, click on it, goes right to the book, so you're getting the right one. I don't know that there's another book out there, the RFactor, but
there is, amazingly, there is actually, and that came out after ours, but it's not connected. And $1 of every book sale goes to charity. So we just want to put that out there as well. We just really feel like, we get to give back. If people are going to support us, we get to support others. So,
well, that's really putting gratitude into action, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
So
that's
yes, and
evidence.
on gratitude, I would say that what we've found is that gratitude is sort of is the door. Gratitude is the door that when we walk through anything we're going to do, any relationship, whatever we're doing, when we walk through gratitude to get there, it changes everything. So we have a gratitude practice guide, which we're happy to share with everybody, and we'll give that information. You can put it in the show notes. Just send us, just go to the website and download it. And it's just something we do every morning that walks us through 4 areas: gratitude, grounding, generosity, and just good morning. Just the G of good morning or good night or whatever it is. Those 4 things, and you can do it in a minute or you can do it in 30 minutes, whatever you want to do. But starting your day with gratitude seems to be important.
And on that, I just want to note on that, we're actually, what's really amazing about gratitude and why we actually built this, just shared this practice, is because we were also finding that during COVID, teams were so disconnected. And families too. I mean, and the truth is, I don't know about you, but there were days would go by and we'd say, what day is it? Right. And so we just started getting up in the morning. We named the days of the week so we could be present in every day of the week. So we themed them so we could be focused. And then we created this gratitude practice. And what we have also found is when this gratitude practice comes into business, it's remarkable. So you do it with your teams in the morning. And the gratitude practice is also something we use not just as a thank you for things that have gone well, but I will tell you, we have a lot going on in our family right now. You know this well, things come and go and it's craziness. There's a lot happening for us right now. And part of the gratitude is also saying, I am grateful that I can be in service to my family. And I am grateful that this is happening in this way for us right now, because I know that if we were not present in this moment, we would not be able to be in support. So thankfully, as tough as it is, so if we're having a tough day and we know there's a big business deal pending and we're nervous about it, we step into it with gratitude. We're grateful we all get to be at the same space together and we get to be in it. And so we really encourage the teams as we're coaching them every day to acknowledge a gratitude. And when you're working with money, this is a tough one because sometimes it comes and goes. Sometimes my investment may not be doing well. So you get to be in gratitude that day, because if you reframe something that might have happened that you could see as negative, I get it. I might have lost a lot of money. Get it. I understand. And what have I learned from it? I'm so grateful that I can learn from this. So we stand in the gratitude of, it could have been worse. I'm grateful I learned from it, but there's always a space for gratitude. And again, that's a choice. That's part of a choice that we make,
What if there were a ticker system, a stock market for our lives? What if every day you saw, Jason's up today, up by 2 points. No, he's down today. Scott's moving in the other direction. Ken and Maris are holding their own here, but you know what I'm saying? That it would be interesting that all of us live in that sort of. It feels like a continuation. It feels like a linear thing. It goes this way, up and down, but it's actually the relationship with money, the relationship with time, or the relationship with family and friends and loved ones and your work is really all about, it's not linear, it's now. It's just right now. Whatever is going on right now is the place to be, and where every relationship starts and where connection begins.
Wow. Mic drop. That's excellent. It really is. And we're coming to the conclusion of our time that we can spend together. It's been so awesome, and I really appreciate it. It's taken a long time, I have to say, everyone, that Ken and Maris have been very difficult to pin down. They mentioned that when we first met, there was a connection, and there was, and it's like, I want them on the podcast. And we have negotiated a very long time to get them on here. So I'm very grateful that you're here, and grateful for your gift to our listeners of that gratitude. And we'll put that in the show notes. Appreciate that. And we would be very grateful. Scott and I would be very grateful if all the listeners would, like and subscribe and give us a 5-star review. That'd be awesome. Scott, is there something else that you want to add here or ask? And
no, I would just say, remember, guys, in the end, mastering your millions is all about your mind and your team. Make sure they are the best. So we will catch everyone next time. Thank you again, you guys.
Thank you so much for including us. And we love what you're doing. We love the podcast and all the nuggets that get dropped on a regular basis. And thank you for including us.
Thanks for listening to Master Your Millions with Jason and Scott Henderson. Check the show notes for any links or contact information about today's guest. Make sure to follow the show so you don't miss any future episodes.